Hello, I'm very happy we can share the impact of hearing loss, hearing care, and empowerment in the workplace. This is a joint project between the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People, AIA, the European Association of Hearing Aid Professionals, and Thomas More University College in Antwerp, the Audiology Department. Now in part one, we will focus on research and the first questions from a specific questionnaire we used in the survey. On the research part, we looked into what we can find in the WHO World Report on Hearing on this topic. We looked at what we could find in peer-reviewed journals, and we also looked for the highest evidence possible, namely systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And here you see a list of those that document about those journals and the importance of having a systematic review or meta-analysis to prove your point. So this is the first starting point. Now, what do we learn in the World Report on Hearing? We think it's a very valuable document. It has many pages. So if you look at page 46, you will find the impact on employment. An association between hearing loss and employment in adults is evident. Overall, adults with hearing loss have increased odds of unemployment or underemployment. We also find a systematic review published in 2020 in the Journal of Laryngology and Otology, and where the conclusion is that adult onset hearing loss is associated with unemployment. And that's what you find in the highest quality studies currently available. Now, what do we find in other peer-reviewed journals and systematic reviews? First, we find that hearing loss is linked with higher burnout scores. Now, burnout is a very important topic. Burnout is something where employers put a lot of attention to. Also, healthcare systems are looking into this. Being able to avoid burnout is a good idea. And when people have first burnout signals, in most cases, hearing is not checked. So this is important to double check that, because burnout is a problem, and if we can prevent it, that would be best. Secondly, we see in research that hearing loss and problems understanding in noise leads much longer time of recovery after work. This is based on longitudinal studies, and that was confirmed in a 5-year follow-up. In those studies, they also find that people with hearing loss, hearing impaired, are more likely to be unemployed or unfit for work. And last, they also need more time to recuperate from work. So overall, hearing loss results in increased odds of unemployment. If you have disabling hearing loss, meaning 35D average hearing loss or more, it's threefold, so it triples the odds to have non-employment. And if you have a mild hearing loss, it even doubles. So I think don't underestimate even mild hearing loss can result in issues at work. Now we see a lot of studies showing that hearing care, the use of hearing aids, the use of cochlear implants, adds value. And of course it does. There is evidence that it improves quality of life, social interactions, hearing soft sounds, understanding speech and quiet, understanding speech and noise, localization of sounds, and even recognizing emotions. There's also evidence that it will reduce listening effort, listening fatigue, loneliness, social isolation, and depression. So yes, we know that hearing care works and it adds value. And if we look at specialized journals looking into impact and functionality at work, and there's an interesting journal called Work, by the way, looking at all the scientific evidence. In a study they show here, hearing impairment among workers and satisfaction with the use of hearing aids, it looks like all workers were satisfied with their hearing aids. So that was not the issue. But workers who still perceived hearing impairment while they are using hearing aids or implants, they show a lot of frustration when talking to co-workers. So frustration is an important negative aspect at that moment. Also, we see that lower satisfaction also leads to a worse personal image of people being employed and having hearing problems. And we also see that the attitudes and the emotional responses are, the overall satisfaction goes down, with the use of hearing aids. So I think that is important. Hearing aids add value, cochlear implants add value, but when they meet issues, frustration is high, personal image is lower, and we see that people start to be very unhappy. Now, what can we do? Because we know that it is important to use accommodations at work, to adapt the situation to function as good as possible. Now, facilitators for accommodation is strong self-efficacy and self-advocacy. So winner's mode, being able to go there. But what is also important is this part, the supportive work environment and the presence of peers with disabilities. It helps a lot if other colleagues are facing the same issues, can guide you and can guide employers how to do better. Now that's the upside. The downside, what are the barriers? And it looks like accommodation requests are often hindered because a lot of hard of hearing people are afraid to ask for accommodations because they are afraid they will be stigmatized. People will look at them, that's an issue, you're a problem, and they want to avoid being stigmatized. And that's why they don't ask for accommodations. Another issue is that there's in many cases a lack of knowledge related to those accommodations and really an absence of good support at the workplace. That's what research is confirming. And lastly, we see there's a lot of ineffective work procedures, a lot of ineffective policies, and a lot of ineffective workplace structures. So there is really room for improvement here. Now, what about the survey? When we developed the survey, and of course, when you work with students and with researchers at the university college, we need a validated questionnaire. We used a questionnaire developed by the Collegium of Rehabilitative Audiology, a group of very smart people in audiology. It's a validated questionnaire, and there are many validated translations of this questionnaire. That's perfect. But the basic version is called the International Outcomes Inventory for Hearing Aids. Now, since in our survey there's many people with more important hearing loss and many are also using cochlear implants, we used the exact same validated translation, but we added cochlear implants in a separate questionnaire to avoid confusion. Next, what we did, we added questions to hard of hearing people on the use of hearing aids, cochlear implants, and other assistive systems. What are their experiences, their needs? What are the solutions they received? What is the information they received? And what is the support at work? First, we developed the questionnaire in English. We had it tested by native speakers in the UK and in Malta, where we asked them to check if the questions were clear, if they could answer clearly. We had it also double-checked by audiologists and members of the Hard of Hearing Association to be sure that the questionnaire worked. When that was ready, the questionnaire was then translated in 10 more languages. Here you see the QR codes and you can get the handout if you want to participate. But also here, we made sure that we used the validated translation from the questionnaire, right? Because that exists from the AOA-HA and AOA-CI. But we also had double-checked if the translation of all the specific questions and terms were clear, both for audiologists and for the hard of hearing people before making that questionnaire public. So that is how it was developed, double-checked. Now, what are the results? Well, we're very happy that so far we have received 1,014 responses to that questionnaire, which is good. And the countries completing most of them are the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, Poland, Spain, Italy, Slovenia, and Portugal. Some other are smaller, so mostly in Europe, we see most of the answers, and we're still hoping that we can promote it more to some other countries to ensure that we can complete the questionnaire with as much as possible. We asked the subject to rate their own hearing, right? How would you rate your hearing? And we see there's 18% of normal hearing subjects. The rest is a smaller group of mild and moderate, mostly moderately severe, severe, profound, and total hearing loss. They are the same terminology used in the WHO classification of hearing loss from 2019. But of course, when you look at the impact of hearing care and the impact of hearing loss at the work floor, we had to focus on those people who are hard of hearing. So here you have the hard of hearing people, 819. And here you see, of course, a minority with milder and moderate hearing loss, a majority with more important hearing loss. And it's no surprise when you look at which people are using cochlear implants and hearing aids with that amount of severe hearing loss, that many people are also using cochlear implants. You may notice that the numbers don't add up, but some combine a hearing aid with a cochlear implant, or some started with hearing aids and then moved toward cochlear implants. So that is why the numbers don't add up, but in total it's 819 subjects that have filled out the report. Now, what are the results of the questions from the International Outcome Inventory for hearing aids and for cochlear implants? And one of the questions is your hearing aid or is your cochlear implant worth the trouble? And the answers are very positive. You see that a big majority says yes, of course. So 30% that's quite a lot worth, 50% it's really very much worth it. We get nearly identical results and even higher, very much positive on cochlear implants. So we can conclude that the subjects participating in this survey say that their hearing aids and cochlear implants are definitely worth the trouble. Second question is, how many hours a day do you use your hearing aids or cochlear implants? And here again, maybe we should mention that to the Collegium of Rehabilitative Audiology, that there's so many people using their implants and hearing aids so much that they may need to fine-tune this one. But we see that more than 90% both of hearing aid users and cochlear implant users use their implant or their hearing aids more than 8 hours a day. So that is good news. And we know there's a relation between satisfaction and use. Did your hearing aid or cochlear implant help in a situation where you want to hear better? And also here we see a very positive response. You will see that more than 80%, right, are saying that yes, in situations where I wanted to hear better, there my hearing aids or my cochlear implants really helped at that moment. Hearing aids slightly higher, but that is very comparable. So let's say overall a very good result. How about your enjoyment of life? Did your hearing aids or cochlear implants make a difference? And here again, you see a very positive response. Yes, the vast majority states that yes, hearing aids and cochlear implants made their enjoyment of life very much better, quite a lot better, slightly better. So overall, we can see that yes, as in that scientific study you have seen before, as in that journal, yes, people are typically happy and feel that it's adding value. So the conclusions of part 1. Adult onset hearing loss is associated with unemployment. You also find that in the WHO World Report on Hearing. There is evidence that hearing care improves quality of life, social interactions, understanding speech in quiet and in noise, localization of sounds, emotion, and whatever. It also reduces listening effort, fatigue, loneliness, social isolation, and depression. At work, lower satisfaction environments with background noise result in a worse personal image. Facilitators to get accommodations are typically people who are strong, are empowered, and have good self-efficacy and self-advocacy. A supportive work environment is important, and having other peers with disabilities also helps a lot to get better accommodations. And the first results from the International Inventory of Outcome Measures of the benefit of hearing aids and cochlear implants, they state that people are typically satisfied with their hearing aids and their cochlear implants. They improve the situation where they want to hear better. They improve the enjoyment of life. And 90% of the users or more use the hearing aids more than 8 hours a day. So now you would think that all is fixed, right? That everything is fine, and you see it in many publications and studies. But I'm afraid that reality calls for much more empowerment. And you will see that in part 2, where we start to look at what are the issues people are still facing. Do they get access to those accommodations? What is the reason they do, why they don't, and why we all need to be better informed. So maybe what I've told you now is a little too optimistic, and let's be fair, there's many things to do, but I'm very happy that the next talk will be given by Lydia Best the president of the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People, where she will dig into this aspect. Why do we need to do more to empower users and to inform employers, audiologists, and other stakeholders much better to be successful at work? So now let us move to part 2. Thank you so much.